One of our renters completely totaled our $100,000 Lotus Evora GT. They spun out in the rain, lost complete control, and crashed into a barrier. The car was completely done. Total loss. You could tell just from looking at the photos. And in that exact moment, I was thinking, am I about to lose tens of thousands of dollars potentially? And what happened next shocked me because the final insurance payout ended up being more than what the car was actually worth. And the craziest part is that only worked because of one thing that most Turo hosts never think about when they're renting out their cars. So this story I'm getting into, this actually happened a few years ago in my exotic car rental business in San Diego. At the time, we had a Lotus Evora GT listed on Turo. We were also doing private rentals, but it was not even my personal vehicle. It was actually an investor vehicle on consignment, which if you're not familiar with that, think of it as property management, but for vehicles. So you're taking someone else's vehicle, you're renting it out for a revenue split. So essentially we were managing the car for them on Turo as well as private rentals and generating income for the vehicle owner. Now the owner had purchased this car for about $100,000. I think the exact number might've been like $102,000 out the door, but the idea was simple. Rent the car out, generate cash flow, and make the investment worthwhile. Now, for the most part, everything was going smoothly. That was until one rental changed everything completely. One weekend, a renter booked a Lotus. It was an airport delivery and nothing about the booking seemed unusual. Valid driver's license. I met the renter in person. There was nothing off about communication. He actually seemed to be a great guy. Everything was textbook standard rental. So we drop off the car at the airport, the renter picks it up and he goes on about his way. And if you've hosted cars on Turo long enough, you will know that most rentals are actually pretty uneventful. The renter usually takes the car, drives it for a few days, and brings it back the way it's supposed to be done. Now that's usually how it goes. But with this rental, I get a phone call. The renter was pretty shaken up, and because it was pouring rain in San Diego, which is not typical, I already knew that something was going to be off. They told me that they were driving the car on the freeway at supposedly safe speeds, and while another car was merging into their lane, they tried to avoid the accident, so they completely lost control, spun out on the freeway, and they hit the barrier in the middle. As soon as the renter sent the photos to me, I already knew exactly what the insurance company was going to say. The car was totaled. And if you've ever hosted cars on Turo, this is basically one of the worst case scenarios. Because when a car gets totaled, everything comes down to how does the insurance company pay out this claim? In this case, the insurance company possibly being Turo. If the claim doesn't go well for you, you could be stuck with huge financial losses. And in an event like this, it's even more stressful because, well, the car is not my car. So I have absolutely no control when it comes to this whole claims process on the outside. Because it was an investor's vehicle, I had to figure out how to protect their investment. So now the question becomes, how is this claim actually going to work? And here is the key part where something important actually happened. The renter had a personal auto policy. And this is something a lot of Turo hosts actually never really think about. Most people that are on Turo assume that their claim has to go through Turo's protection plan. But in a lot of situations, if the renter holds a personal auto insurance policy, the claim can actually be done through their policy, and that will cover the accident. Little do you know that if they do have a personal auto policy and you continue with the claims process through Turo, guess what Turo is going to do? Turo is going to collect the money from their personal auto policy anyways. So why rely on Turo's negotiation tactics? And why pay the deductible if you don't have to do that? So instead of relying only on the platform coverage, we actually went to the renter directly. We confirmed they had personal auto insurance. We told them why it would be more beneficial for them to file the insurance claim through their personal auto policy rather than going through Turo. There are benefits for both the host and the renter to do it this way in most cases. This means that the insurance company had to determine the value of the total vehicle, in this case being a more rare vehicle such as the Lotus Evora GT. And now this is where things actually got really interesting. The first offer that came back from the insurance company was in the low $80,000 range. Now I just told you that this vehicle was purchased for around $102,000 and this vehicle had just been purchased like 3 months prior to the accident. But this is a pretty common scenario when you're dealing with insurance companies. Insurance companies will almost always start with a very low valuation. So if we had went ahead and accepted the first offer, which was $80,000 from the insurance company, the owner of the investment vehicle would have been at a huge financial loss. And sadly, this is what a lot of people actually do. They're scared of insurance companies and they think that whatever they're offered is the final offer, and that's just not the case. Now, when it comes to Turo, you cannot fight valuation of the vehicle. You have to fight based on options of the vehicle. I did a video previously about how to get higher insurance payouts on total losses from Turo in a video titled something along the lines of "My GLE was totaled." you can check that out, but this is more focused on private insurance companies. Private auto insurance policies that cover claims like this, they are expecting you to negotiate, and that is exactly why they start at a low ball offer. So instead of accepting the offer, I pushed back. I, myself, started gathering comparable listings for this Lotus Evora GT, basically looking at other similar vehicles for sale in my area and across the country because this is a more rare vehicle. I gathered a bunch of data from recent sales and current market prices of that particular vehicle. I was basically building a case showing why this particular car is worth much more than the offer they gave me. Now, what an insurance company does, they give you the lowball offer, and they don't just give you the lowball offer. They send you low listings within the country within reason that of vehicle sales history. So when they got the $80,000, that was based on market price for vehicles that were actually on the market, but on the low end. And they do this so that way when you get that first email, you're like, oh wow, they really did their research. Like, okay, I guess that's what this car is going for in today's market. That's not the case whatsoever. So if you've ever had to negotiate with insurance companies, you know that this process can actually take quite a bit of time. There's a bunch of emails, phone calls, and just a bunch of back and forth with the insurance company. But after a few negotiations back and forth, the insurance company came back with their final valuation offer. And the final payout ended up being somewhere between $111,000 and $112,000 for this vehicle, which means something pretty crazy actually happened. The investor that owned this vehicle actually ended up making profit on the total loss of his car. The insurance payout ended up being $10,000 more than what he paid for the vehicle. So even though that the Lotus was completely destroyed, the situation ended up being profitable. And the renter handled the deductible with his insurance, so we did not have to pay any deductible on this claim. Now, this in itself completely changed the situation of what could have been a very, very expensive situation had we gone through Turo. So there are a few important lessons when you're running cars on Turo, as well as private rentals. The first thing is, personal auto insurance of your renter can matter more than you actually realize. If the renter possesses a personal auto insurance that covers rental vehicles, it can sometimes be a much better path for handling claims. And most major insurance carriers across the country do have policies that transfer over to rental vehicles. You just have to know how to work the process. And yes, sometimes there are dollar limits to which that they're bound to. But at the end of the day, this is very, very possible, and this should be part of your standard operating procedure when there is an accident. The second lesson here, never ever accept a first offer from an insurance company. The first number is usually going to be a lot lower than the actual market value of the vehicle. If you bring data and comparable listings to the table, you can often negotiate a much better payout. And the third lesson is documentation is super, super important. You need photos of the vehicle, proof of value, and market comparisons can all strengthen the valuation of your vehicles when you're dealing with insurance companies. Because situations like this can easily cost hosts tens of thousands of dollars if you don't know the proper operating procedures when it comes to accidents and dealing with insurance companies. Now, if you're watching this video and you're interested in starting your own car rental company or scaling an existing car rental business, I personally work one-on-one with people to help them build and scale their car rental businesses the correct way. If you want help building your fleet, structuring investor deals, just like we did with this Lotus Evora GT, and also avoiding potentially expensive mistakes like this, you can book that call with me with the first link in the description below. And we can see if it makes sense for us to work together. Thank you again for watching this video. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and we'll see you in the next one.